And one of our colleagues threw out the idea of Mr. Potato Head, which probably helped me get me started. I created what would become the Zoombinis. We initially called them Snoid.
We can't really do something like Tabletop Junior for the home market because it's too open-ended. But could you make it a game? And I really like those Snoid characters. Could you make it a game?
Most games ended with a game over. Trying to think about a structure that didn't do that gave you a way of continuing playing even when you weren't succeeding. We didn't think of Zoombinis as an educational game. We just thought of it as a game, an adventure game.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Zoombinis podcast. Today we're joined by two very special guests, Chris Hancock and Scot Osterweil, the original creators of the logical journey of the Zoombinis at Turk. Back in 1990, they designed a groundbreaking puzzle game that continues to teach critical thinking and problem solving to new generations. We'll explore the story on how Zoombinis came to life, what inspired the design, and why it still resonates decades later. Welcome, Chris and Scot. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you both came to work at Turk?
I came to Turk from working in educational research. I was at a place called the Educational Technology Center at Harvard. Before that, I got into the whole business by teaching. I found that I loved teaching, and I taught programming coming out of college, and I became a introductory programming instructor at Harvard's night school. And then there was this project at Harvard that was doing not so much education about computers, but computers for education, at least actually some of each. And I started working on introductory kids learning programming, and I developed the idea for a data tool, a visual representation where the data that you're analyzing moves around and arranges itself into graphs, which is actually perhaps the grandparent of Zoombinis. That thing was called Tabletop. And I was invited to come and develop that at Turk. And so I grabbed that opportunity. Turk was a great place to work. And I started getting some grant funding to build Tabletop. And we went from Tabletop to Tabletop Junior. That's where Scot and I joined forces. Could say more about that in a minute.
And my background was in theater and television production. I worked for a number of years at the Boston Public Television station, WGBH. I found that even at a fairly good place like GBH, the whole process of TV production felt too corporate to me. I didn't really enjoy it. Well, I liked it at first, but I gradually came to like it less and less. So in an attempt to reinvent myself, I taught myself animation and was doing computer animation. It was the early days of being able to do animation on a PC. Prior to that, animation could only be done on very expensive machinery. And so suddenly you could do TV broadcast quality animation on a PC. So I was doing that. It was also the very beginning of graphical user interfaces in software. So the same skills that I had developed doing animation came in handy when suddenly places like Turk, which had always developed educational software, suddenly needed to have graphics in them. I mean, previously software was just, lines of text on a screen. So not knowing that I was becoming an interface designer, that's what I became basically by being hired to do some graphics for Turk. And the second product I worked on was the one that Chris mentioned, Tabletop Junior, which is what led us to Zoombinis.
What was the spark that led you to the creation of Zoombinis? How did you go from kind of tabletop to Zoombinis?
Right. Yeah. I do want to give Tabletop Junior a moment. This has been sitting on my shelf for years, that I have it.
Oh my gosh.
This is it runs on a 3.5 inch.
That is so cool.
It was, so with the original Tabletop, you'd collect data about sports teams or countries or whatever, and what's that?
Or cats.
Or cats.
Yeah,
they were the famous one about cat. And then the individual teams or countries would slide around and arrange themselves in a graph. But those were just little icons that were all pretty much identical, and they represented something far away. So this was something remote, like the country. This was an attempt to do some of the same kind of thinking with objects that you're just moving in place. And we made a bunch of them. Pizzas. We had pizzas. We had stick figures like you can see here. And they were similar to the Zoombinis in that, I mean, these stick figures are kind of extra, the colors and stuff are added, but we had different poses, different things with their arms. And so they were combinatorial. Also, the pizzas were, we had sort of aliens with funny faces. We had party hats. And all of these things are, you could group them, you could sort them, you could do logic puzzles with them, but it wasn't a game. It was a tool environment. And actually, what we thought of it as was a manipulative. Um, that was kind of the paradigm that we were bringing into the digital realm from the physical realm. In mathematics education, there have been these things, these you can still see them in the classroom, these little rods that are different lengths, and then you can stick them together, and that's like adding. And you can do different kinds of mathematical activities, or you can just enjoy, messing around with them and just getting a feel for them. Or blocks are like that. And so that was really the philosophy, to try to make a digital manipulative. And we generalized the structure of these combinatorial objects that we made. And
Yeah.
I asked Scott, could we make, we had some very simple, actually, I don't think we had, could we make some faces that had different characteristics on them? And then people could build those combinatorially and play logic games with them. So that was enter Scott.
Yeah. And one of our colleagues threw out the idea of Mr. Potato Head, which probably helped me get me started. So then I created what would become the Zoombinis. We initially called them Snoid. I initially called them.
They were the Snoids.
Snoids.
Yeah, for many years.
And that was in homage to Robert Crumb, the underground comic artist who had created characters called Snoids. So we eventually discovered, I had forgotten that they were particularly obscene and nasty little creatures. So the name is great, but we couldn't use it for the.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, the work with the development of the game started with them still called Snoids, and it was partway through that we realized we had to rename them.
Yeah.
So Brittany, you're looking for a spark, and I think there's a few of them, and I think one of them is when Scott made these faces that were just much richer visually and imaginatively as characters than all the different other combinatorial objects that we had. So they immediately became kind of the ambassadors, the flagships of Tabletop Junior. And Tabletop Junior was well along in development. I forget if it was just me on that first trip or if you were there too, Scott. I think I was looking for, I was out shopping for a publisher.
It was just you.
Tabletop Junior, and I visited Broderbund. In the end, Broderbund their educational division did publish it. But I somehow also got to meet with their edutainment side and met Lori Strand and some other people that you've interviewed. And she said, yeah, we can't really do something like Tabletop Junior for the home market because it's too open-ended. It really needs a teacher. And this is like the teacher's guide. This has all this stuff to do with it. But could you make it a game? And I really like those Snoid characters. Could you make it a game? And so I would credit Lori with that next spark. That's really what, and I said, okay, maybe we'll think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What sparked it for her, she said, was they had a family day and their kids were in the offices, basically, I think. And her daughter, who was, I don't remember how old her daughter was at the time, but she basically sat down with Lori showed her Tabletop Junior, and her daughter then spent some very long amount of time playing with the Snoids. And that was what made Lori think, just watching her how to play with them. So,
yeah. So with that,
and that's why Lori
challenge from Lori. I went back to Cambridge, and Scott and I think we went out for lunch one time. And a lot of it came together there about the language of these characters, and it kind of started to roll.
I remember.
I mean, there were many
I
stages
mean, we started.
for that to evolve. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we created a couple sample puzzles and showed them to Broderbund, and they liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was one critical meeting early in the process, after I think they'd already committed to doing it, when there were 5 or 6 of us in a room at Broderbund, when the whole structure of the game sort of snapped into place. I mean, we sort of had the core idea of characters moving through the landscape and having to solve puzzles, but there's still some of the structure and architecture of the game. I remember coming out of a really rich, whole, like a day or 2 days in the early.
And that may even have been our second visit out there. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm just guesstimating, because I mean, there were a bunch of different things that had to come together, and we got it. We hit on there were a bunch of principles that, as we thought about it, became more important to us, and then we had to kind of test them. Like, for example, we wanted puzzles that you could repeat, and we wanted puzzles that you could not just you solved it or you didn't, but you could have increasing partial success. That was a huge way in which the game made progress over at least the games that we were aware of, the other games that we were aware of. But we had to kind of prove that out. And then we had this notion that you would bring a band. Oh, and then I think, but then the notion that there was a whole population and you had to ferry them over, that emerged. And then that there would be different trails. And, how many would there be in a band? 16? Well, is that going to work? Like, will puzzles work with 16, or do they need to be fewer or more? So we were sort of testing these different ideas and how they could fit together. And
just to give you a little bit of context, you mentioned 1990. It was actually, we started.
It was 92.
Between 93. 93 was when we signed a contract, and it was completed in March 96. But at that point in time, most games ended with a game over. You played the game. When you failed, you got a game over, and you started over again. And so trying to think about a structure that didn't do that didn't sort of and that gave you a way of continuing playing even when you weren't succeeding. We weren't the only ones doing it, but that was important to us. And I think that was a major part of sort of the design, was so that you could keep playing a game even while you were still learning it and struggling with it. So
I do you remember there was a period when we thought that Zombiniville was going to be this whole simulated city, and there would be Zombinis walking in and out of buildings. And
it's like a whole second product in effect. And they were sort of game at first. I mean, they were welcome. They welcomed that, but then as time went on, I think they just realized that. And we did some design for it. I mean, I still probably have design docs for the Zombiniville, but
really,
I think they just realized it was
Film Zombiniville.
Yeah, that's what it was, really.
Yeah. So with the no game over, do you think that's kind of what made Zoombinis different from the other educational games that were out at the time, or what other things made it a little different?
Well, so I would quibble with the term educational game. We didn't think of Zoombinis as an educational game. We just thought of it as a game, an adventure game. We were thinking of it 8 to adult. And I think Broderbund initially did too. The market was evolving while over the years that Zoombinis was made. And it became much more driven by what also happened over the course of time that Zoombinis was made is personal computers became much more popular. The kind of people who owned a personal computer when we started tended to be people who were sort of ahead of the curve, who were kind of interested in computing. And by the time the game came out, people were beginning to see them as a commodity and as something that you bought so that your kids would do better at school. And that's the way the marketing team at Broderbund ended up marketing it. In fact, the staff we worked with, the production staff we worked at Broderbund, like us, didn't want it marketed as as narrowly educational. Yeah.
Oh wow.
They resisted too.
There was a subtle change. Initially, it went out as Logical Journey of the Zoombinis, and then in later packages, it's Zoombinis. But Logical Journey, as they gained more.
We really hated Logical Journey as a title. So, oh yeah, we fought it.
Really?
So, I mean, we could only fight so much, yeah. I think Chris and I had two different. Chris
Oh,
wanted,
wow.
what was it? Zoombinis Progress. Was that what you wanted? And I wanted, yeah,
Oh, Snowy's Progress,
yeah.
like Pilgrim.
You wanted that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted
I
Flight of
probably
the
would.
Zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. So the learning
neither of them obviously happened.
aspect of it actually came after all of everything else.
I think I want you and your audience to reshape what you think learning is. I thought about this when to your questions. Games don't teach you anything any more than a tennis court teaches you how to play tennis, right? Tennis court is a place where you teach yourself, you learn tennis, and games are places where you can learn stuff, but they don't teach you. And so Zumbinis, Chris and I were both intrigued by the mathematics. We liked playing with math, and we thought some percentage of people out there in the audience would like playing with math. And yes, we assumed that that their mathematical understanding might grow and develop, but the point was just to give people fun playing with math.
And yeah,
Bill?
picking up on that, in most of life, and also in the Zumbinis, when you're learning, say, how to get better at a puzzle, that's your own work to do that. And the game doesn't really presume to tell kids how to understand stuff. And they're going to be developing all kinds of ideas that, we can give names to, like, there's algebraic thinking, there's
Graphical,
dimensions, there's all these words,
Yeah.
the mathematical content. Kids make up their own words or just their own intuitions, and we give them the space to find their own way with the content. And so that's where, if the first time your Zumbinis came to a puzzle and you only got through like 5 out of your 16, well, you didn't totally lose. You're still playing the game. You can keep going. And the next time you come back, you can try to get a few more through. And off and on, you're slowly, piece by piece, because there isn't necessarily just one idea that goes into being able to beat a puzzle. This is a whole combination of insights and strategies and things that they put together. And kids will do that in different orders, in different ways.
Yep.
And by having a puzzle that's repeatable and reconfigurable, and that you still are rewarded no matter how poorly you did. I mean, it's very rare that they all get sent back. We set up a situation where you're gonna get those reps. In the 90s, we didn't have that word reps, but Zoombinis is all about reps.
Yeah.
And it's more like a playground is kind of how I see the game, where you kind of can play with it as you want type of thing, rather than this is the only way to get across, this is the only way to do it. You get 5, you can try again. And,
Absolutely. And I think I hope there are kids who play occasionally who make the bridges collapse in the first puzzle just because they want to see it collapse, or I've subsequently, because I've gone on to do, this was the first game I ever designed, but I've gone on to do nothing but design games, and I tell the students that I've taught, make sure that the failure state of the game is fun. You want people to hit the failure state occasionally and struggle with it, because that's where learning really happens. So make sure that the failure is as much fun as the success.
So there wasn't really any kid training or developing during the game development, right? You didn't
we did lots.
Oh, lots.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm stuck because I'm like this at dinner parties too. I'm going back to the previous subject.
Go back.
But you said was it different from other games? And what we talked about there was basically that could maybe go under a brick wall, in that we didn't present a brick wall with puzzles. There were a lot of other puzzle games where you solved it or you didn't, and that was all there was to it. But I think the 3 other things I would say is the depth. So the fact that each puzzle has a more and more advanced version, and you start out really simple and you wind up really sophisticated. That was quite unique. Also the breadth, the fact that we are coming at similarly related ideas from 12 different angles, so that you get a very well-rounded exposure and experience with those mathematical ideas. So the depth and the breadth, and then the intrinsic motivation is another one. Maybe we'll come back to that. But it relates to what you were just asking about. What piloting have we done? Because I mean, part of it is all of that work that we did with Tabletop Junior. So we had a lot of experience. We already had a couple years experience of doing different kinds of research with kids with different kinds of problems and challenges of the same sort, is kind of organizing, mapping, arranging, uh, all these kinds of logical reasoning, all these kinds of activities with combinatorial objects. We had that foundation. But at that time, we hadn't really put it into the story framework with the Zoombinis. And so Scott and I, we particularly had a relationship with one school in Cambridge where we would go in and sit down with the kids. And we had a little paper cutout Zoombinis, or snoies as they were called at that time. So we would bring a box with some paper snoies and some other props, and we would set up most of the puzzles there. I don't know if you want to take it.
Yeah, no, I mean, so a typical puzzle,
Um,
like we showed them the bridge,
and we would
we
do
did
the
the voices. I mean, in our original vision, I mean, and by the way, lots of our ideas morphed as the other people involved, the artists at Broderbund got involved. So the original vision of the bridge was similar, except that instead of them sneezing, there was a troll on the bridge, and the troll would either let you pass or he would kick you back. And so the kid would present a snoid to us, and I would say okay, and then they'd be allowed to, or I'd say get out of here, and then we'd act and the kids, of course, were playing along with it. It was sort of like fun for them too to sort of play out the bouncing back and all that stuff. So, and what's interesting is that even working in sort of simple black and white drawings and line art, if you have a kind of a story or an idea that grabs kids' imagination, you see them pick up on it. So you can tell whether something's interesting to a kid, even in a crude paper prototype.
That's right. And kids would say like, these snow my family, this one's my brother, and or then there were a couple of girls playing, and one would say, well, okay, these will be my babies, these will be your babies. And so when we saw that kind of imaginative investment, we started to get a sense of how this was going beyond what we were doing in Tabletop Junior with the integration of story, of character.
Wow. That's awesome. So we've kind of talked about some technical, some creative, and otherwise. Out of all of that, what do you think was the biggest challenge on creating Zoombinis?
It's not trivial to come up with 12. In fact, we came up with, I think, 11 puzzles, most of which are interesting. The 12th one we did was a little complicated, and their programmers had trouble understanding our design. So there's a 12th one. One of the 12 is designed by the programmers, and I think it's less challenging and less interesting than.
What was the original name
No,
of that
I
one
think
puzzle going to be?
We actually ended up instituting it in either Zoombinis 2 or Zoombinis 3. It had to do with flushing down pipes. Yeah, it became.
Yeah, basically you got to flush your Zoombinis down a big toilet.
But it became the hex.
Was the and the math was the math was all about connections, pipes connecting.
The hex grid one is the one.
But I think not only were the programmers confused, but I think they said the reason they gave up was they couldn't figure out how to draw it. It was impossible to draw something where the network of pipes was up on a hill, but then the flushing went down. And we said, oh, why didn't you tell us he didn't? And then Scott drew it, because you just have to get the right perspective. Yeah. And they said, oh, well, too late. So that whole night very sad. But I think it relates to when you say, what was the most challenging thing, the most difficult, I think it was coordinating the work of a big team, and where we were across the continent and had very limited clout, sway within the creative team. I mean,
Yeah.
It's an amazing accomplishment, and it's a privilege that we were able to work with Broderbund at this very particular moment in their trajectory, where they had a tremendous amount of capability and were able to do something
And we're
really
committed to the
ambitious.
collaboration. I mean, they gave us a fairly.
They were,
I don't mean
yeah.
generous, like overpaid us.
Right.
They funded a fairly long design phase that was expensive. I think it was good.
Right.
And it's not that we were expensive, but it was
Right.
so it was a long design phase. So yeah, they committed.
It's time, yeah. It took I mean, people, a lot of game design or product design, people don't. Well, I think maybe now people understand a little more, but it used to be that the question was, well, how are we going to draw it and how are we going to program it? And the design was just something you came up with on a napkin over the weekend. And the difference with Zoombinis is no, there's hours and hours and months of and really years if you of what built on of design work into it.
But
And
that's,
yes,
like
with that.
any large effort, making a film, putting on a play, doing a game, does require lots of collaboration. And I think, again, I want to give all props to Broderbund for being fairly good collaborators, but collaboration is hard. So there were hard moments, in that collaboration. I think the biggest fight we had was over the representation of the Zoombinis themselves, because the initial drawings in Tabletop Junior were flat and two-dimensional. I sort of understand how this happened. They gave an artist there the charge of coming up with new version. And, he was given license. And so he tried to come up with really fanciful stuff, but it looked nothing like our original art. And so we had a long period of struggle trying to get them to look more and more like our, making them more three-dimensional, but making them look like the original Snoids. And we got most of the way there on the first round. When we redid the game with Turk, and I was working with Fablevision, the producers of the game, the current version, I think we got to push it even, a little closer to our original vision of them. So, but I don't want to single that out. I mean, again,
These are the old Snoids. I don't know if
so they were very.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, yes, yeah.
So they've always had no arms.
And so they felt like, oh, let us at it. We're the 3D experts. But what got missed at there was, in animation, they were used to making characters, like an amusing character with like exaggerated features, who's gonna be kind of wacky and entertaining. And we wanted that toned way, way down. We really liked the inscrutableness, that we liked, that they were inscrutable. And you would look at them and wonder, what were they thinking? Because we wanted to give the kid room to say, well, this one is feeling this way and this one has this kind of personality. So we wanted protagonists, not characters. So they came back. I mean, they originally, the first ones were just super exaggerated and kind of dumb looking. That's the other thing, was we wanted them to look smart. We wanted them to, so there was a whole thing of philosophy about the head shape. Like if you look at the head shape of a baby, its brain is, it's more elongated because it's got more brain back there. And that's a time in its life when it's able to, or just a young kid, young kids are just very open to the world, very able to learn and adapt and grow and change. And that was a big part of what we wanted them to embody. And so there was, we did get them. So they were kind of hulking and dumb looking, and we got them to be, they were still too cutesy, but it was good.
But only by a little. But only by a little. Yeah.
So what made you decide for them to not have arms?
Oh, it was a practical decision. I mean, I just wanted these simple characters that, you remember, the fact that they're combinatorial, that you can mix and match any of the traits. There are only going to be 4 traits. Any additional thing would be a distraction. But I think, just in my own imagination, somehow I always imagined, as I drew them, that they were totally capable. So, and they never needed arms, I guess, in my mind. They just didn't need them. I always imagined that somehow, whether it was with prehensile use of their feet or whatever. I mean, by the way, in my imagination, they do have mouths. They're just not, you're just not seeing them. they're sort of like below their noses somewhere. But yeah.
So out of all of the puzzles, what was the best one or the one you're most proud of creating?
I can tell you one that I know from years of demoing the game that most quickly. Well, there's two in different ways. I think the one that truly as a puzzle, gets people most engaged is the mud ball wall. It doesn't mean it's I don't want to claim any of them as the best. It's like with your children, you don't have a favorite child. But I do think mud ball wall, I think the noises sort of appeal to people. I think the action is simple and comprehensible, sort of. And I think it really beautifully, and this, by the way, this is all Chris. Chris really developed the mud ball wall. Although I guess Broderbund gets props for the mud.
Yeah, Broderbund gets the credit for it. So for like when we dreamed it up, it was like frisbees.
Frisbees against the net on a net,
and they would go up.
Yeah,
and they turned it into this mud flinger, and that's another thing it's so satisfying. The noises. Yeah, it's just so much fun to shoot a big slappy mud ball at a wall. That's Broderbund.
Yeah, but I also think it beautifully encapsulates an idea. I mean, I've watched kids playing that game sort of understand basically graphing. I mean, understanding how graphing works from playing the game. And you can tell because you can watch, sometimes if you watch two kids playing together, they're talking to each other and you can see the moments when they suddenly put it together, how it works. So, and that's when I demo the game, that's usually the one I go to because it makes it easiest to explain to people sort of what our whole approach is. I can name two others that I think are worth. Chris, did you want to throw something out?
Go ahead.
I think the Bubble Wonder Abyss, the last puzzle, which really begins to get at computer programming, is to me, maybe that's the richest one in terms of what more you could do with it. In fact, we did try to make a whole game based on that structure. And not only us, but LucasArts stole the idea from that and tried to make a game based on it. And I later met someone from LucasArts who admitted that they had, he was sheepish about it. Yeah, he said, yeah, he was embarrassed. To me, it was flattering that they tried to imitate it. I wasn't annoyed, but a game called Pit Droids, which is all based on Bubble Wonder Abyss. And the other one is the Pizza Trolls, because everyone loves the trolls, so yeah.
I think that's a good rundown. No, I think those are three highlights. I mean, in a way, yes, each of those was. I also just love the way they all fit together. I think the game frame is the great. I don't know. It seems like almost a standout achievement of the game. Is just that structure where you're migrating a population through the puzzles, the game mechanics that make that possible, the getting thrown back and the advancing forward and the leveling up. That whole structure is a kind of a perfect framework to get the most out of these individual puzzle games.
Did you guys anticipate the pizza one being so popular and everyone's favorite?
Yeah. No, I think maybe.
Yeah, the pizza it got good reactions.
As a winner.
When you were doing paper. That's a very good actor too. I really like that actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guys who did those voices was great, I thought. Yeah. So
really,
I'd love to meet. We've never met them or had any contact with them. I would love to meet Arno. Yeah. I mean, our producer Dennis Leahy did was in the studio with him. So
wow.
We didn't. We weren't there.
We'll have to do another podcast of everybody.
Yeah. If you ever find him,
love this.
If you ever find him, bring us back on.
And the other thing I would say about the collection, it's just the sort of conventional educational software or even just education is going to teach you the one way that you solve something, whereas you really benefit from coming at it from different angles. And so that's what these puzzles do in combination. So with the pizzas, you're doing logical reasoning with the constraints structured one way, but with the cliffs and the caves, the constraints are structured a different way. So you get to really get into it deeply. And then dimensionality in the hotel, you are actually creating the mapping on the dimension yourself, subject to the certain constraints. Whereas then with the mud ball wall, you have to guess it. So you have the same idea, but you come at it two ways. And then when you get to the fleens, it's similar to that, because once again, these attributes are being mapped, but now not into a space, instead into a different character set. So it's a closely related idea. And so that, you can go on and take all the puzzles, and many puzzles have sort of a counterpart elsewhere probably nearby in the product that is coming at the same idea in a different way.
Yeah.
So just that intellectual coherence was part of what makes the product feel coherent. And I think they all enhance each other that way.
Yeah. And I think it's funny that the pizza one is a logical one, because to me, logically, how could you have a pizza without cheese? It doesn't make any sense to me, but most of the time it doesn't have cheese.
Yeah, I forget. Is cheese one of the topics?
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
one of the topics. Yeah. Well, remember, this is a different world.
Yeah.
Believe it
Yeah.
or not.
Did you expect Zoombinis to have this kind of lasting legacy that it has today?
I don't, when you create something, you always hope it's going to be good. I don't dare to.
I mean, I don't know.
Exactly how.
That project really stands out for me as one where, we would say to each other, "Boy, this is so good. This is so different." We really felt like everything came together, and you could just see it, the benefits kind of multiplying. So yeah, I think we felt it was a real.
We felt good about it. We definitely felt good about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you expect, like,
But you don't,
sorry, go ahead.
I wouldn't have predicted, say, that my grown child still, when new friends find out that I worked on this, that they get excited and ask for my autograph. I wouldn't, I would not have expected that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And who was thinking ahead 25 years? Certainly not.
Yeah.
Or 30 years, whatever.
Yeah. Are you guys surprised that, like, educators and therapists, museums, different places like that use this game today?
I guess I'm always pleasantly surprised, but it's always what I'd hoped, it's nice, it's always nice to hear about it.
What are therapists doing with it?
Oh, yeah. Our last podcast, we had some child therapists on that use it in just brain development, getting them to kind of articulate sometimes of what they're thinking, problem solving, working together, different things like that is what they're kind of using in therapies today.
Cool.
We did think about talking. I mean, we wanted a game that we have two people playing together, and talking was like an ideal scenario for us. And I do remember ESL teachers talking about how they liked to do it with kids who were not English speakers, because or native English speakers, second language, because it would get them talking.
Yeah. I mean, we we knew we didn't want time pressure, in part because not because time pressure can be really great in the game, but we didn't want kids fighting over. We know that once you do that, really only one kid plays. The kid who has the mouse plays the game, and the other kid can just watch. So not having time pressure meant you could always discuss your decisions before you, and that meant having to come up with other forms of jeopardy. I mean, because frequently time is the source of jeopardy in the game, and so we obviously had to have alternate models. So,
yeah. Some of my favorite letters, because we would occasionally get emails or communications from people who played, but there was a recurring theme. Quite a few parents who would write and say, "My kid and I play this all the time." It had something for both of them. I mean, we haven't talked a whole lot about how advanced the advanced levels are. Not that the parent is necessarily the more advanced either. There are kids who've completely mastered that game top to bottom.
Although I don't think young kids,
no. Well, I know a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
he's not 10 now,
but did it?
Who actually he had a strange way of playing. Anytime he lost one Zombini, he would just give up that whole. I don't know exactly what he would do, but somehow he would abandon that whole trip. I think he would intentionally lose all the rest of them, because he only wanted to be perfect. And so he would play perfectly through every puzzle at level 1. And I think you have to do it a couple times. And then he would play perfectly at level 2. And he would stay, anytime it wasn't perfect, he would start over. And he went perfectly all the way to the top. Wow. 9 years old. I don't recommend that for everyone, but you had the flexibility.
But and we imagine that there might be one kid who got one band through, and then but another kid who might collect all of them at the different rest areas, and then move them all, get them all to one rest area, then get them all to the next. That we wanted that kind of flexibility in the way people played with it. So
Yeah, and with siblings, we have a couple ambassadors that do homeschooling, and they use it with all of their kids during homeschooling, and the siblings can play together, different age levels and different things, which has been really cool too to see. So we're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire here. And so this is going to be a little bit more loose and fun. Just the first thing that comes to mind. What is your favorite Zoombinis accessory?
I didn't have one till I saw you're wearing the sweatshirt, which is actually based on art I created. So that's my new favorite accessory. Yeah.
I need a signature on the sweatshirt now. I'm going to have to send it to you.
I thought you would too. And those are, they don't look as much like it in these Zoombinis.
Yeah.
The train wheels, right? We call them
they are. It's hard to tell, but they are the way that they. It's the look of the drawing. It's the way they are in the game. Yeah.
And Scott is a train enthusiast, so
you said accessory. I thought you meant like
anyway,
merch. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, like merch?
You meant Zoombinis trafe? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, probably the wheels. Yeah.
Nice. I like the spring. The spring's one of my favorites.
And I'll stick up for it because I think actually kids often really like the baby hair.
Yep, I like
that gets so I'm gonna go for the baby hair.
The toughest puzzle, in your opinion?
So for me,
you go, Chris.
Because puzzles. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to say a whole bunch of stuff supposed to be rapid fire. So I'll just say, actually, the mirror one and the toads one, all the ones where you have to like go hunting through the screen for stuff because, like, I'm terrible. Like my wife will tell you, I cannot find stuff in the fridge.
Visual search.
And so any puzzle that's got like find things in the fridge, vibes, visual search.
For me, the fourth level of Lion's Lair is designed in such a way that I can still fail at it, even though I know exactly what the algorithm is. It's hard enough that you can sometimes fail at it, even when you know exactly what.
Oh, wow.
So,
a Zoombini character trait that you like to have in real life?
Well, so what Kristen also mentioned, I'm an avid cyclist, so I would be fine with having the wheels,
A word that we came up for them at that lunch where we first started thinking about them, and we called them a hardy band, and we stayed with this idea that the Zoombinis are hardy. They're sort of young and open-minded, but they're just really resilient. I guess I'm sometimes somewhat resilient, but that would be a good thing to always have more of. I'd like to.
Love that.
That's a character trait I'd like to.
All right. What's one word to describe Zoombinis?
If not intrepid.
That's a good one.
Well, the other one, completely different, knee high. We joke that we're knee high to everything they met.
That's right. Yeah. That's pretty good.
That's funny. Chris, do you have any?
Blue.
Yeah.
The Zoombinis blue. I like it. All right. So what excites you most about the future of games and education?
I've gone through I stayed in this space since then. And it has gone through cycles, boom and bust cycles. And we went through a phase in the late aughts, early teens, when there was a huge amount of enthusiasm in educational circles for games. A lot of funding for it. Commonly accepted, but at the same time, it became therefore less sexy. And so there was, and I would say, and here we could have a long conversation about educational establishment in general, but we're going through a period of retrenchment where they're just, and this unfortunately, it predates the current administration. It's older than just this, but where there just is less interest in truly exploratory, truly playful learning. Not on the part of serious educators. Educators get it, but the educational establishment, the administrators, the parents, we're going through a long cycle of really pushing performance on standardized tests. And so it's not that people have rejected games, but they just don't have space for them. So they're sort of like, they'd be nice to have, but we got to get the test scores up. It's not as if the games, again, games really have nothing to do one way or the other with whether test scores go up or not. And it's you either have a vision of education as being exploratory and playful, or you don't. And if you don't, you might say games are fine, but you won't really invest in them.
Yeah, I mean the sort of standardized game, like I use like a nutrition counter thing, and they give you badges, and they say hooray, and they give you affirmations, and they keep you marching down the path. And so a lot of games are now that. It was sort of the opposite of what we were
Yeah.
aiming for.
But I think I guess that was a pessimism. Let me just my optimism is that human invention can't be suppressed, and so people will always come up with interesting stuff. And when people come up with interesting stuff, other people will be attracted to it. So there will be other good stuff happening. It will happen. We're just in a moment when the system is kind of militating against it, but it doesn't mean that it won't prevail over time. So
Absolutely. So what are you guys up to nowadays? What projects are you working on now?
Well, I'm back. Yeah, I'm back in the data tools domain, and I'm working on like data science tools, not in an educational context. So that's but it connects to years of work that I did on data tools in an educational context. So I'm doing that. I do have a couple side projects. I have a children's book, a playful, brainy alphabet book, and then also I'm trying to put together what I think should be the New York Times's next word puzzle game. Now that Wordle has been there for a long time, I think they need something new. I think I got it.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I'm mostly retired, but I am working on a product for reading. My goal in that is we're not actually creating the activities like we do with Zoombinis. We're more working just on the framing and the surround. And so my goal in that is to really come up with sort of a story world that helps kids feel good about. These are sort of activities kids have to do to sort of improve their reading. And I feel like my goal is to frame them in such a way that they actually see the value of them, so that they enjoy it. So that it doesn't feel like something they just have to do, but rather something that they enjoy doing. I guess what I want to say is I want kids to understand how magic reading is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so kind of finishing up on this note, we have parents and their own kids and generations playing this game now. Do you have any message that you would like to share with all the fans that still love Zoombinis today?
More topics.
I'm thrilled that you're still playing, and keep having fun.
Thank you guys so much for being here today. I truly appreciate it. I've learned a lot. It's been amazing. I'm excited for the fans to hear. And thank you again. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you.
Fun. Yeah.
Bye.